Messina, na. Messina, also U.S. Italian, messina listen, Sicilian, missine mɪsˈsiːna, Latin, Messana, ancient Greek. Messene, romanized. Messine is the capital of the Italian metropolitan city of Messina. It is the third largest city on the island of Sicily, and the 13th largest city in Italy, with a population of more than 231,000 inhabitants in the city proper and about 650,000 in the metropolitan city. It is located near the northeast corner of Sicily at the Strait of Messina, and it is an important access terminal to Calabria region, Villa San Giovanni, Reggio Calabria on the mainland. According to Eurostat, the FUA of the metropolitan area of Messina has, in 2014, 277,584 inhabitants. The city's main resources are its seaports, commercial and military shipyards, cruise tourism, commerce and agriculture, wine production, and cultivating lemons, oranges, mandarin oranges, and olives. The city has been a Roman Catholic archdiocese and Archimandrite seat since 1548 and is home to a locally important international fair. The city has the University of Messina, founded in 1548 by Ignatius of Loyola. History. Founded by Greek colonists in the 8th century BC, Messina was originally called Zankle, Greek, Sakal, from the Greek zaklon meaning side because of the shape of its natural harbor, though a legend attributes the name to King Zanclus. A commune of its metropolitan city, located at the southern entrance of the Strait of Messina, is to this day called Scaletta Zanclei. Solinus writes that the city of Meteoros was established by people from the Zankle. In the early 5th century BC, Anaxilas of Rhegium renamed it Messene in honor of the Greek city Messene. See also list of traditional Greek place names. Later, Misitheus was the ruler of Rhegium and Zankle, and he also founded the city of Pixus. The city was sacked in 397 BC by the Carthaginians and then reconquered by Dionysius I of Syracuse. In 288 BC, the Mamertines seized the city by treachery, killing all the men and taking the women as their wives. The city became a base from which they ravaged the countryside, leading to a conflict with the expanding regional empire of Syracuse. Hiero Roman II, tyrant of Syracuse, defeated the Mamertines near Mylae on the Longanus River and besieged Messina. Carthage assisted the Mamertines because of a long-standing conflict with Syracuse over dominance in Sicily. When Hiero attacked a second time in 264 BC, the Mamertines petitioned the Roman Republic for an alliance, hoping for more reliable protection. Although initially reluctant to assist lest it encourage other mercenary groups to mutiny, Rome was unwilling to see Carthaginian power spread further over Sicily and encroach on Italy. Rome therefore entered into an alliance with the Mamertines. In 264 BC, Roman troops were deployed to Sicily, the first time a Roman army acted outside the Italian peninsula. At the end of the First Punic War, it was a free city allied with Rome. In Roman times, Messina, then known as Messana, had an important Pharos lighthouse. Messana was the base of Sextus Pompeius during his war against Octavian. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the city was successively ruled by Goths from 476, then by the Byzantine Empire in 535, by the Arabs in 842, and in 1061 by the Norman brothers Robert Guiscard and Roger Guiscard, later Count Roger I of Sicily. In 1189, the English King Richard I the Lionheart stopped at Messina en route to the Holy Land for the Third Crusade and briefly occupied the city after a dispute over the dowry of his sister, who had been married to William the Good, King of Sicily. In 1345, Orlando d'Aragona. In 1347, Messina was one of the first points of entry for the Black Death into Western Europe. Genos galleys traveling from the infected city of Kaffa carried plague into the Messina ports. Kaffa had been infected via Asian trade routes and sieged from infected Mongol armies led by Janibeg. It was a departure point for many Italian merchants who fled the city to Sicily. Contemporary accounts from Messina tell of the arrival of death ships from the east, which floated to shore with all the passengers on board already dead or dying of plague. Plague-infected rats probably also came aboard these ships. The Black Death ravaged Messina and rapidly spread northward into mainland Italy from Sicily in the following few months. In 1548 St. Ignatius founded there the first Jesuit college in the world, which later gave birth to the Studium Generale, the current University of Messina. The Christian ships that won the Battle of Lepanto 1571 left from Messina. The Spanish author Miguel de Cervantes, who took part in the battle, recovered for some time in the Grand Hospital. The city reached the peak of its splendor in the early 17th century, under Spanish domination. At the time it was one of the 10 greatest cities in Europe. In 1674 the city rebelled against the foreign garrison. It managed to remain independent for some time, thanks to the help of the French King Louis Roman XIV, but in 1678, with the Peace of Nijmegen, it was reconquered by the Spaniards and sacked. The university, the Senate, and all the privileges of autonomy it had enjoyed since the Roman times were abolished. A massive fortress was built by the occupants and Messina decayed steadily. In 1743, 48,000 died of a second wave of plague in the city. In 1783, an earthquake devastated much of the city, and it took decades to rebuild and rekindle the cultural life of Messina. In 1847, it was one of the first cities in Italy where Risorgimento riots broke out. In 1848, it rebelled openly against the reigning Bourbons, but was heavily suppressed again. Only in 1860, after the Battle of Milazzo, the Garibaldine troops occupied the city. One of the main figures of the unification of Italy, Giuseppe Mazzini, was elected deputy at Messina in the general elections of 1866. Another earthquake of less intensity damaged the city on 16 November 1894. The city was almost entirely destroyed by an earthquake and associated tsunami on the morning of 28 December 1908, killing about 100,000 people and destroying most of the ancient architecture. The city was largely rebuilt in the following year. It incurred further damage from the massive Allied air bombardments of 1943, before and during the Allied invasion of Sicily. Messina, owing to its strategic importance as a transit point for Axis troops and supplies sent to Sicily from mainland Italy, was a prime target for the British and American air forces, which dropped some 6,500 tons of bombs in the span of a few months. These raids destroyed one-third of the city and caused 854 deaths among the population. The city was awarded a gold medal of military valor and one for civil valor by the Italian government in memory of the event and the subsequent effort of reconstruction. In June 1955, Messina was the location of the Messina Conference of Western European Foreign Ministers, which led to the creation of the European Economic Community. The conference was held mainly in Messina's City Hall building and partly in nearby Taormina. The city is home to a small Greek-speaking minority, which arrived from the Peloponnese between 1533–34 when fleeing the expansion of the Ottoman Empire. They were officially recognized in 2012. Climate. Messina has a subtropical Mediterranean climate with long, hot summers with low diurnal temperature variation with consistent dry weather. In winter, Messina is rather wet and mild. Diurnals remain low and remain averaging above 10 deg C 50 deg F lows even during winter. It is rather rainier than Reggio Calabria on the other side of the Messina Strait, a remarkable climatic difference for such a small distance. Government. Main sites. Religious architecture. The cathedral 12th century, containing the remains of King Conrad, ruler of Germany and Sicily in the 13th century. The building had to be almost entirely rebuilt in 1919–20, following the devastating 1908 earthquake, and again in 1943, after a fire triggered by Allied bombings. The original Norman structure can be recognized in the apsidal area. The facade has 3 late Gothic portals, the central of which probably dates back to the early 15th century. The architrave is decorated with a sculpture of Christ among the evangelists and various representations of men, animals, and plants. The tympanum dates back to 1468. The interior is organized in a nave and two equally long aisles divided by files of 28 columns. Some decorative elements belong the original building, although the mosaics in the apse are reconstructions. Tombs of illustrious men besides Conrad Roman IV include those of Archbishops Palmer, died in 1195, Guidato de' Abbiate 14th century, and Antonio Lalegname 16th century. Special interest is held by the Chapel of the Sacrament, late 16th century, with scenic decorations and 14th century mosaics. The bell tower holds the Messina astronomical clock, one of the largest astronomical clocks in the world, built in 1933 by the Ungura Company of Strasbourg. The belfry's mechanically animated statues, which illustrate events from the civil and religious history of the city every day at noon, are a popular tourist attraction. The sanctuary of Santa Maria del Carmelo near the courthouse, built in 1931, which contains a 17th century statue of the Virgin Mary. See also Chiesa del Carmine. The sanctuary of Montevirgine, where the incorrupt body of Saint Eustachius Smeralda Califato is preserved. The Church of the Santissima Annunziata dei Catalani, late 12th–13th century. Dating from the late Norman period, it was transformed in the 13th century when the nave was shortened and the façade added. It has a cylindrical apse and a high dome emerging from a high timbre. Noteworthy is the external decoration of the transept and the dome area, with a series of blind arches separated by small columns, clearly reflecting Arabic architectural influences. The Church of Santa Maria degli Alemani, early 13th century, which was formerly a chapel of the Teutonic Knights. It is a rare example of pure Gothic architecture in Sicily, as is witnessed by the arched windows and shapely buttresses. Civil and military architecture. The Botanical Garden Pietro Castelli of the University of Messina. The Palazzo Calipege d'Alcatraz, an example of 18th century Messinese architecture, which is one of the few noble palazzi to have survived the 1908 earthquake. The Forte del Santissimo Salvatore, a 16th century fort in the port of Messina. The Forte Gonzaga, a 16th century fort overlooking Messina. The Porta Grazi, a 17th century gate of the Real Cittadella di Messina, by Domenico Biondo and Antonio Amato, a fortress still existing in the harbour. The pylon, built in 1957 together with a twin located across the Strait of Messina, to carry a 220 kV overhead power line, bringing electric power to the island. At the time of their construction, the two electric pylons were the highest in the world. The power line has since been replaced by an underwater cable, but the pylon still stands as a freely accessible tourist attraction. The San Ranui Lighthouse, built in 1555. The Palazzo della Provincia, Palazzo dei Leoni, provincial seat, built in 1914 by Alessandro Giunta. The Palace of Culture, built in 2009. Monuments. The Fountain of Orion, a monumental civic sculpture located next to the cathedral, built in 1547 by Giovanni Angelo Montorsali, student of Michelangelo, with a Neoplatonic alchemical program. It was considered by art historian Bernard Berenson the most beautiful fountain of the 16th century in Europe. The Fountain of Neptune, looking towards the harbour, built by Montorsali in 1557. The Monument to John of Austria, by Andrea Camillich 1572. The Senatory Fountain, built in 1619. The Four Fountains, though only two elements of the four-cornered complex survive today. Museums. Museo Regionale di Messina Mumi, hosting notable paintings by Caravaggio, Antonello da Messina, Alonso Rodriguez, Machiapretti. The Galleria d'Arte Contemporanea di Messina, hosting paintings by Gio Pomodoro, Renato Gattuso, Lucio Fontana, Corrado Cagli, Giuseppe Magnico, Max Lieberman. Public transport. The new Messina Centrale station building was projected following the modern criteria of the futurist architect Agnello Mazzoni and is extended through the station's square. It is at almost contiguous with Messina Marittima Station, located by the port and constituting a rail/ferry interchange point to Villa San Giovanni Station, across the Strait of Messina. The station is electrified and served by regional trains, by an experimental suburban railway to Giampilieri, and by the modern Messina tramway at Repubblica Stop on Stations Square, opened in 2003. This line is 7.7 kilometers (4.8 mi) and links the city's central railway station with the city center and harbor. For long-distance transport it counts some intercity and ICN night trains to Rome, linking it also with Milan, Turin, Venice, Genoa, Bologna, Florence, and other cities. It is also part of the projected Berlin-Palermo railway axis. Buses. Messina's public bus system is operated by ATM Messina, which covers a net area of 34 km 21 mi. About 36 different routes reach every part of the city. Sports team: ACR Messina, Messinen, SSD City di Messina. Notable people. List of notable people from Messina or connected to Messina, listed by career and then in alphabetical order by last name. Actors: Adolfo Sully, actor born 1922. Tano Cimarosa, actor born 1922. Maria Grazia Cucinotta, actress born 1968. Nino Frassica, actor born 1950. 1950. Massimo Mollica, actor born 1929. Artists and designers: Girolamo Alibrandi, painter born in 1470. Anna Maria Arduino, 1672–1700, 17th century painter. Writer and socialite, served as the Princess of Piombino, from Messina. Antonio Barbalonga, painter, 17th century. Francisco Comand, painter, 16th century. Antonello da Messina, major painter of the Renaissance, born 1430. Giuseppe Mazzini, painter born 1908. Giovanni Quagliata, painter born 1603. Filippo Juvara, Baroque architect, born 1678. Mariano Riccio, painter born 1510. Alonso Rodriguez, painter born 1578. Giovanni Tuccari, painter born 1667. Politicians, civil service, military. Giuseppe La Farina, leader of the Italian Risorgimento, born 1815. Gaetano Martino, politician, physician, and professor, born 1900. Giuseppe Natali, lawyer and politician, born 1815. Luigi Rizzo, naval officer and First World War hero, born 1887. Musicians, composers. Mario Aspa, composer, born 1797, T7. Filippo Bonafino FL, 1623, Italian madrigal composers. Composers. Religion: Eustachia Smeralda Califato, saint, born 1434. Annibale Maria di Francia, saint, born 1851. Sports: Tony Caroli, motocross world champion, born 1985. Vincenzo Nibali, cyclist, born 1984. Researchers, academics. Aristocles of Messene, peripatetic philosopher, 1st century AD. Physiogis, Greek philosopher and mathematician, born 350 BC. Domenico Gallo, historian, born 1697. Francisco Morolico, astronomer, mathematician, and humanist, born 1494. Agostino Silla, painter, paleontologist, geologist, and pioneer in the study of fossils, born 1629. Giuseppe Segenza, naturalist and geologist, born 1833. Giuseppe Sergi, anthropologist, and psychologist, born 1841. Others: Stefano d'Arrigo, writer, born 1919. Guido del Colon, judge and writer, 13th century. Literary references: numerous writers set their works in Messina, including Plutarch, The Life of Pompey, 40 BC; Giovanni Boccaccio, Decameron, Roman 4 Davy novel; Lisabetta da Messina, Roman 4 de Roman 4 novel; Gerbino ed Illis of 1351; Matteo Bandello, Novelier, first part, novel, Roman 22 1554; William Shakespeare, Much Ado About Nothing, 1598, and Antony and Cleopatra, 1607; Molière, Eliterti ou les Contretemps, 1654; Friedrich Schiller, Die Braut von Messina, The Bride of Messina, 1803; Silvio Pellico, Eufemio da Messina, 1818; Friedrich Nietzsche, Idyllen aus Messina, Idylls from Messina, 1882; Giovanni Pascali, poem L'Aquilone, 1904; Ilio Vittorini, Le Donne di Messina, Women of Messina, 1949; and Conversazioni in Sicilia, Conversations in Sicily, 1941; Stefano d'Arrigo, Horsinus Orca, 1975; Julian Green, Domaine Inexiste Pass, 1985.